The version control feature is used to protect your workbook if you close without saving and wish you would have saved it. By default it's turned on and it'll automatically save your workbook every 10 minutes. If you want to change that, like to every minute, then come up here and click on the File tab, go backstage down to Options, select Save, and these are the two checkboxes that you want. First off, save auto recover information every, for the sake of this training video, let's do 1 minute. And then keep the last autosave version if I close without saving. Then go ahead and click OK. Make your changes. We'll do all threes. And then after a minute, it'll automatically save it. So let's wait a minute. Whew, that was a fast minute. Let's go ahead and go backstage to make sure it did its job. Info selected by default, so just come down here and hey, there it is. Took a snapshot in that point in time at 8:03 p.m. So when I go back and I'm like, okay, I don't want to save this, I'm good. And I close out of it, and I say don't save it, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have saved that. That's okay, just go ahead and open up the workbook again. This one's called autosave or version control, double click. And then come up here, click on the File tab, go down to where it says, well, it used to say autosave, now it says when I closed without saving, it was that point in time. Click on it, opens up another window here, so I have my original over here, then I have the restore option. So if I restore it, it says it'll overwrite the original. Are you sure? Click okie dokie, and we're good. What you're looking at here is a mini database for the company Play-Doh Inc. and the sales is in thousands of dollars, and it's for these employees. So I've got my total column here for quarter 3, and then the months that make up third quarter. So for July, you can see that Marge Simpson is in cell B6, also the same cell, but a different worksheet for August, and then September. So when I go back to the total worksheet, I want to bring in all those cells for those different months for the third quarter. Just hit the equals key on the keyboard and go to July, select the cell, and then notice up here in the formula bar, it's got the name of the worksheet and then the operator that separates the name of the worksheet and the name of the cell. So within the worksheet, July, we're looking at B6. If you hit enter on the keyboard and you select the cell, you can see it up here in the formula bar, and it's just bringing in the number from July. But I want to include all the other numbers and add them up to get the total for the third quarter. To do that, let's go ahead and click back up here in the formula bar, hit the plus key on the keyboard, and then go to August and select, it's going to be the same cell but different worksheet, B6, and then go ahead and hit the plus key on the keyboard, go to September, and select the final cell in our formula, then hit enter, come back up here, and there you go. Equals July, the cell B6 for July, B6 in August, B6 in September, 61,000. Now before you go ahead and click and drag the autofill handle down to fill in the rest, or just double click really fast because it's in a column, let's go ahead and hit undo. There's another way that you can go about doing this, but you have to have some structure, like I have. For example, Mr. Humphreys is in B7, and on July he's also in B7, also August and September. So if I go back to the total worksheet, and I want to quickly add those up without going from worksheet to worksheet, then let's go ahead and hit the equals key on the keyboard and type in the function sum, hit the tab key to pop open the syntax so we can see it down below, and we're going to go to July and select the cell B7, but then instead of clicking from one worksheet to the next, I'm going to hold down the shift key and click on September. Then look back up here and see what's going on. It says it's going to take the sum of July, colon means through, September. So July, what's in between or through September is August, and it's going to be the same cell for every month or every worksheet, and that's going to be B7. So if I hit enter, select the cell again, there you go. July through September, B7 for each worksheet or each month. Cool. And then we can just go ahead and do an autofill, double click on the black cross to quickly copy and paste the formula. Now the thing that you want to know is that if you do it this way, you don't want to muck about with your worksheets down below. Because if you take one worksheet and move it out of the formula, because remember, let's go back to the total, the colon means through, so July through September. Well, what's July through September? It's not August, it's on the outside. So instead of being 43, it's now 30 because we're missing August. So if we click and drag August back into the mix, so it's through, go back to the total, now it's 43 instead of 30. That was a close one. So don't mess with your worksheets if you do it this way, okay? It's just a shortcut, but it does have its drawbacks. Now because these formulas are pulling in the numbers from the other worksheets, they are linked, so any changes that I make on those other worksheets, it'll update it here. So like for Marge, 61, and then for Mr. Humphreys, 43. So if I come to July, and I go 0 and 0 for Marge and Mr. Humphreys and go back to the total, instead of 61 and 43, they're now 44 and 28. And it's not just formulas. For example, we've got a cell here that has the text total. If I come into another cell and hit equals, and I select that cell, it equals whatever's in that cell, in this case text. When I hit enter, there you go, it's just linking it up. So if I make changes in this cell and get rid of the S and totals and hit enter, it updates it here as well. The three functions we want to cover are upper, lower, and proper. The upper converts all the letters into uppercase, as you can see with Max Klinger. The lower is, well, like it sounds, all to lowercase, and then proper takes the first letter of each word and makes it uppercase, like D is already uppercase for Danny, first letter of that word, and then for this one, D for DeVito. Let's start first with uppercase. Max Klinger is good, so let's go down to Bob Appelman and hit equals, then type in the name of the function, up. There we go. Converts a text string to all uppercase letters. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function or to see the syntax, and it says what text are you going to be referring to convert to uppercase. Well, it's over here in cell C7. You can type it in or select it, and then go ahead and hit enter. Hey, that was slick. And then instead of doing that over and over again, as we talked about in earlier training videos, you can go ahead and copy and paste the function, or to do a quick copy and paste for the function, select the cell that contains it, hover over the bottom right-hand corner until you get the black cross, double-click really fast, and oh, that was slick. And then if you needed to go up, that's okay, select it, and then click and drag the black cross up. Does the same thing, but he's already in uppercase. No harm done. Let's go ahead and do lowercase. Click and drag to select everybody, delete them, and then let's start with up here with Max equals low. Converts all letters into text string to lowercase. So with it selected, hit the tab key to pop it open. It's asking for the text, and it's over here in cell C6. With it selected, go ahead and hit enter. He's all lowercase. And then again, you can select the cell, lower right hand corner, double click really fast, and they're all lowercase. Now at this point, if you're thinking, okay, I want it to all be lowercase and not proper or uppercase, Bob Appelman's the only one that's currently correct. If you want to bring this over and put it into the name column, in other words, replace the results over here with what you had in the beginning, then with it selected, go ahead and right click on it and select copy or Control C. You get the marching ants. And then come over here, the first cell, Control V as in Victor to paste it, and you get a reference error because what was over here was the result of a function. And so it's referencing something that you just pasted over, which was nothing. And so you got a circular reference, as it were, and it can't figure that out. So what you want to do is after you paste it, find the little tag down below for the paste options and click on it and say that you just want to paste the values, the result of the function. When you select the values, you can see when you select a cell, it doesn't have the function that it copied from over here, which when you select that cell, shows the function, but it copies the result or the values that come out of the function, and it's right there, Max. Cool. Let's go ahead and hit undo a couple of times. Well, hit the escape key to get rid of the marching ants. And then the last one's for proper. We can try it with Max Klinger, all uppercase, and Bob Appelman. So if I type in equals prop, well, we got a couple here. We want proper. So I can select it, and you can see converts a text string to proper case, the first letter in each word, to uppercase. With it selected, hit the tab key on the keyboard, and then it says, okay, where's the text? It's over here in cell C6. Select it, hit enter. Cool. Even takes that, which was all uppercase, and brings it down to lowercase, well, after the first letter for each word, and then keeps the first letter of each word in uppercase in this example here for Max Klinger. And then again, go ahead and select it, bottom right hand corner, black cross, double click really fast, and nice. To combine the contents of two or more cells into one, like their last name and first name over into this cell, let me show you the first way. Hit the equals key on the keyboard, and then select the cell, and then go ahead and type in ampersand. That's the operator to combine with what cell? This one. If you want to keep on combining, you can go ahead and type in ampersand and select another cell, then ampersand and select another cell, but that's just crazy. Let's just go ahead and keep it simple, and then just combine the two with one ampersand, hit enter, and there you go. Now if you're like, you know what, I want a space, something like last name, comma, space, first name, then let's go back and double click in the cell to edit the formula. Click after ampersand, hit the space bar, do open quotes, comma, space, close quotes, space, and then ampersand, and see if this makes sense. So we're combining that cell, and we got a separator, our delimiter, comma, and then space, and then we're combining it, the ampersand, to C5. Go ahead and hit enter. Hey, that looks cleaner. I actually got some breathing room in between their last name and first name. And then of course you can go ahead and select the cell, hover over the bottom right hand corner, get the black cross, double click really fast, or click and drag, and it copies the formula into all the other cells. Now you can do it that way, or let me hit the delete key on the keyboard. You can use the concatenate function. And so let's type in equals there it is, join several text strings into one text string. So with it selected, hit the tab key on the keyboard to pop it open. It says, okay, where's the first text that you want to be able to combine with your second text, third text, and you can go on, it seems like forever, but let's just keep it simple. It's going to be this one, and then go ahead and hit comma, and it goes to the next part of the syntax, makes it bold, and it says, okay, in this, where is the second text, or text 2? Well, it's going to be this cell, which is C5. Hit enter, and there you go. But we run into the same problem, like, okay, where's the separation, the delimiter, the comma, and or space? Double click on it. And instead, what we can do is we can go ahead and click after the first comma, and then do open quotes, comma, space, close quotes, comma. And what that does is now we have 3 texts we're dealing with. The first one is B5. The second one is open quotes, comma, space, close quotes. And anything that I type in between those quotes is going to be displayed. And that will be the comma and the space. And then the third text after the second comma is going to be cell C5. Hit enter. Nice. And you can actually combine functions if you want. This may be a little bit premature for this training, but let's go ahead and do it. Let's say that we want everything in uppercase after we combine the two. And we learned about uppercase in the previous training video, so let's go ahead and double click. And before concatenate, let's type in up. There we go, upper. So it goes upper, then it has the parenthesis, and then it has the text. So at the end of it, we can just go ahead and close it. So everything that it pulls out after it concatenates and brings in will then go to uppercase. So you have a nested function, a function within a function. So hit enter, and there you go. And then of course, if you want the result of it, not the function there, just the value, as you can see up here, there's the function. And then go ahead and right click on it, copy it, right click again, and then select the values, which is the paste option. You can see the little icon 1, 2, 3. Click on it. When you look back up here in the formula bar, you can see it's no longer the function pulling in everything over, but the result of the function or the value. You hit the escape key, get rid of the marching ants, and then don't forget, let me delete that completely. You do have the flash fill that we talked about in an earlier training video, and you're thinking, hey, why don't I just use that? That's fine if you have the columns that are adjacent to one another, because that's the only way that flash fill is going to work. If they're not adjacent to one another, then you're probably going to be using concatenate. The 3 functions that I want to go over are the left, find, and search. Now the find and search are basically the same functions, and I'll go over that in just a minute. But first off, we've got the left. The left will return the number of characters at start of text, and the start of text for the name here is the far left, so you could say the left function. Let's say I want to go ahead and get everybody's first name in this column here, and to do that, let's begin with Max Klinger. Hit equals on the keyboard and type in the first couple letters for the left function. And you can see it's highlighted and says returns a specified number of characters from the start of a text string. So go ahead and hit the tab key to pop it open, and you can go to the first argument that's in bold, and it says, okay, where's the text? It's over here in cell C6. Select it, hit comma to go to the next argument, and it says how many characters do you want it to count and return, meaning that how many characters do we want to get max? Well, max is 3 letters, so let's go ahead and type in 3, hit enter, and hey, there's max. Now that's fine, except if I think that I can go ahead and cheat and hover over the lower right hand corner until I can see the black cross and double click really fast to do an autofill, basically to copy and paste that function to everybody else down below. Does it pull in everybody's first name or the first 3 letters? Yeah. Brit for Brit, only the first 3 letters. So that doesn't work. Let's go ahead and delete everybody else except for Max again, and let's do some tweaking. Double click to open it up. And instead of counting the first 3, which doesn't work for anybody else except for Bob and Max, let's go ahead and delete that and say we want to nest a function, the find function. What we want to do is we want to find something that breaks up the first and last name, and that's going to be the space, right? So let's go ahead and type in FIN to find the find, And there it is, returns the starting position of one text string with another text string. So with that highlighted, hit the tab key on the keyboard to pop open the function. There's the first argument of 3. The first argument says, okay, what text are you looking for? We're looking for a space. So go ahead and do open quotes, space, close quotes. Hit comma on the keyboard to go to the next argument, and it says, okay, where are we looking in? Within what text? It's in cell C6. So go ahead and select it. And then at this point, I'm going to skip the last part, the start number, because by default it's going to start by counting 1, meaning the first letter in the cell, which is going to be max. We'll go over that in just a minute, but the default's 1. And let's go ahead and click on the outside to finish it, because we have one set of parentheses, but we don't have the second set. We just have the first one, so we need to close it by adding the second. So we have our order of operation, the first set of parentheses. It does that first, and it says, okay, go ahead and find the space within this cell. And it found it, and once it finds it, it's going to return a number. How many? Well, MAX space is 4 characters, so it's got 4. And so there's the number 4 for the left function, looking in, again, cell C6, and so it returns max plus the space. Go ahead and hit enter on the keyboard, and hey, there we go. Now, how can you know that there's a space there? Because when you double click, you can't click inside to just focus on the value because you got the function. So let me hit the escape key. If you hover over the bottom right hand corner until you can see the black cross and double click really fast, and hey, it does everybody just right. Not the first 3 letters, but it found the space over here for Danny after 5 characters. The 6th one is the space. And so to be able to see if I've got that space coming in, I need to convert this by copying it and then pasting it as a value to overwrite the function. So if I go ahead and do Control-C, I copied everything here, and then do Control-V as in Victor, come down at the bottom, click on the Paste Options tag, and select 1, 2, 3, where you can see in the pop-up the first 1, 2, 3, which is just the values. So select it. You can see up here in the formula bar, there's no function. It's just the value or the result of the function for Max, and then for Bob, and then for Danny. And so if I double click really fast in it, you can see it's got the first 3 letters and a space. So it included the space. Now if you don't like that and you want to get rid of it, well, let's go ahead and hit the escape key and hit undo until we can get back to our function. And let's go ahead and delete these guys and just go back to Max, double click. What we want to do is come at the end of the find and type in -1, because we want to subtract that last character, which is the space character. Hit enter, and then go ahead and hover over the bottom right hand corner, double click really fast with the autofill, and then Control-C to copy, and then Control-V as in Victor to paste, and then come down here, click on the paste options, and then click on paste values. And so we've got the value, the result of the function. So when I double click, hey, no space after Bob. It got rid of that extra character, the space character, by subtracting 1. Let's go ahead and hit the escape key, hit undo, and then let's delete that. Come back up here to Max, and let's go ahead and double click. And then let's go back within the find function, because now I want to talk about the last one that I didn't want to cover, the final argument, the start number, because when you do comma and you get it in bold, it says, okay, enter a number. If you don't enter a number, it's going to be 1. What this does is that it's going to start after a certain number to find that space that we're looking for, remember, in between the 2 quotes. So if I type in, like, let's say 5, it's going to start after 5. So if you look at Max, M is the first one, A is the second, X is 3, space is 4, 5 is K. After K, in this cell, it's going to start looking for the space, and there's no space after it. So when I hit enter, we've got no value. But when I go ahead and hover over the bottom right-hand corner and double-click really fast on the black handle, it finds it for the others because, like, for example, Danny, D-A-N-N-Y, that's 5, and the 6th one is the space. So after Y, it looks for the space, and hey, it found it, so it returned it after that. Now, the purpose of that, you may find it in your line of work where you actually need to start counting after so many characters to just ignore those to get to that one that you want to begin your search thereon. So in any case, let's go ahead and undo that. And double-click in here again, and I'll show you that find is just like, let me type over and type in search. There it is, the first couple letters, and you can see it's highlighted, and it says returns the number of characters at which a specific character text string is first found, reading left to right. So with that highlighted, hit the tab key, it pops it open, and then you can see, starting with the first one, inside the inner set of parentheses, and it says, what text do you want to find? It's just like the find function. you have open close quotes, and in between it you got the space because you're looking for a space. And then go to the next argument. It says within what text, that's cell C6, and then it's got the start number. Exact same thing, isn't it? So when I hit enter, it gives me max. Select the cell, lower right hand corner, get the black cross. Once you see it, double click really fast to do the autofill, and fabulous. So search and find, basically the same thing as far as what we're trying to accomplish here. The three functions that I want to go over and in tandem are the write, find, and len. Because I need all three, a couple nested it into one to be able to extract everybody's last name. For example, let's talk about the first function, the write function, which is the opposite of the left function as we talked about in the previous training video. So let's type in equals RI, the first couple of letters. You can see returns a specified number of characters from the end of a text string, meaning that it's going to start on the far right. So if I want to extract the last name out of Max Klinger, then it's going to start in the far right and go from right to left. So when I hit the tab key to pop open the function, the first argument's in bold and it says, okay, where's the text? Go ahead and select the cell, B6, and then go to the next argument, type in comma, and then it says, okay, out of how many characters do you want to count up? Well, Klinger has a total of 7 characters, so type in 7, hit enter, fabulous, which is great, but if you try to do a shortcut and say, okay, hover over the lower right hand corner to click and drag and to copy that function all the way down, well, not everybody has exactly 7 characters in their last name, so some of them are being cut off, or they get the last couple letters of their first name included. So that ain't going to work. Let's go ahead and delete that. The next function, as you recall in the previous training video, is the find. Hit equals, F-I-N. There it is, returns the starting position of one text string within another text string. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. There's the syntax, the first argument, find the text. What do we want to find? We're looking for something that separates the last name from the first name, because we want to be able to get to that point and say, okay, now just give me the last name after you find that delimiter, that character, that separator, which is the space. So we're finding open quotes, space, close quotes. Anything in between the quotes is what it's looking for. Then go ahead and do comma to go to the next argument, and it says, okay, where am I looking for this space? It's within that cell, and then just go ahead and hit enter, and it counted up a total of 4. Now, the find function worked great with the left function because both of them start on the left-hand side and go from left to right. So that's why we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 gets us to that character. But it doesn't work with the right because the right goes from the far right and goes backwards, and if you count backwards 1, 2, 3, 4, I just get NGER. So let's go to the next function, which is the len, equals LEN, and it returns the number of characters in a text string. So it returns the complete number that makes up Max Klinger, all the characters. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. It says, okay, what text are we looking at? It's within cell B6, hit enter, and you get a total of 11 characters. Now, out of 11 characters, if we subtract 4, what do you get? Hey, we get 7. That's the exact number that's in his last name, Klinger. So see if this makes sense. Let's go ahead and combine all 3. Let's go to this last one here and type in equals and start with write. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open, and it says, okay, where's the text? Well, that's over here in cell B6, comma, and then it says the number of characters. Now this is where we get a little bit fancy with our other 2 functions. The first thing that we want to look at is the total number, which is 11. So that's the len function, L-E-N. Hit the tab key and it says, okay, where's that? Well, that's over here in cell B6 again. And then we need to go ahead and close the parentheses because we have the first open. Now we need to close it. And then we're back into the write function, but we need to go ahead and subtract from the total number here, 11, from, you guessed it, the find function, the result, which is 4, which will give us the total of 7. So we're coming back over here, and we're still within the last argument, the number of characters. So after it finds 11, then we have to subtract it from what the find finds. So type in find, there we go. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open, and it says, okay, what text do you want to find? Remember, open quotes, space, close quotes, because we want to find the space. Then comma to go to the next argument, within what text? Well, again, B6, and then that's it. So we can go ahead, close that set of parentheses. So we got this set, that set, and then we've got one over here, so we have to close that one as well. And then before I hit enter, see if this makes sense, it's looking in cell B6, and it's counting from right going to left, but as it does so, it's looking at all the characters, which is the len function, and subtracting what it finds, starting from the left side, which counts up to 4 when it gets to that space. So 11, which is the total, minus 4, gives us Klinger. I love numerology. And so let's go ahead and select that cell so we can hover over the bottom right-hand corner to get the black cross, and then just double-click really fast to do a copy and paste, and just beautiful. Everybody's got a last name. The mid function is used to return the characters from the middle of a text string given a starting position and length. So for example, I've got my phone number here with the area code. Let's say I just want the area code in a separate column. We can use the mid function by typing in equals MID, and there you go, returns the characters from the middle of a text string given a starting position and length. Hit the tab key to pop it open. First thing it says, where's the text? Well, it's over here in cell D16. Then to go to the next argument, hit comma on the keyboard. Now the start number's in bold, and where do you want to start the count? Well, if you look over here, the area code has a parentheses, so we don't want to start at the parentheses, which is number 1. We want to start at number 2. So we'll go ahead and type in the number 2, and then comma, and then the number of characters we want to return after it begins the count. We want to return 3. So go ahead and type in 3, hit enter, and hey, wasn't that fun? One final thought is that if you've got an input mask, meaning that it's just for your viewing pleasure, the parentheses, but it's not really found up here, as you can see in the formula bar, that means that as far as the count goes, you want to start with number 1 and not number 2, because the parentheses wouldn't be included in the count because it's an input mask. The AND/OR functions require 2 or more tests. For the AND, both tests or conditions have to be met in order for it to be true. And for the OR, just one of the 2 or more conditions that you want to set up has to be met in order to be true. For example, let's work with the AND. So we have both conditions. You can see we've got Max Klinger, years of service, total sales. In order for him to get a commission, he has to meet 2 conditions. He has to have 5 years of service and a total sales of greater than $450,000. So let's go ahead and set up the AND condition to say it has to meet both of those by typing in equals, type in AND. You can see it checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. So true. With it highlighted, go ahead and hit the tab key to pop open the syntax. And you can see the first argument, the logical test or the first test, it's going to be, well, we can do either one first, doesn't matter, but let's say it's going to be the total sales. Cell E6 has to be greater than, so go ahead and type in greater than. And then the total number, which is 450,000. And then to go to the next test, the second one, or the second condition that has to be met in order for Max to get his commission, comma, to go to the next argument in the syntax, in which case we can go ahead and select the years of service, which is cell D6, and then it has to be greater than 5. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and hey, it's true, he meets both conditions. And then we can go ahead and copy and paste that function to the rest of the cells down below by hovering over the bottom right-hand corner, get the black cross, double-click really fast, and hey, let's take a look at this guy. He didn't meet it. I mean, Bob had more than $450,000 in sales, but he had to have had more than 5 years of service. If you want it to be greater than or equal to 5 years, so it includes the equaling of 5 years, then you can go ahead and double click to open it up and say instead of greater than, let's have greater than or equal to. And so you type in the equals after the greater than, or if it was a less than, after the less than, because if you type it in before the greater than or less than symbol, you'll get raspberries and it won't work. So hit enter and hey, now he meets the condition because it's 5 years or more. And so we can select that and double click really fast to fill in the rest, and looks like Danny didn't meet it because it was less than 450,000 and so on. Now that's for the AND function where they have to meet both logical tests. For the OR, like let's say we want to give them a promotion, let's say that they have to earn more than 500,000 total sales, or they have to have more than 5 years of service. Not equal to 5 or more, but just more than 5 years of service. So to do the OR function for them in order to get their promotion, where it has to meet one or the other condition, type in equals, type in OR. There you go. Checks whether any of the arguments are true and returns true or false. Well, as near as I can see it before it gets cut off. With it highlighted, hit the tab key. There's the first logical test. We can do this one, which is cell E6, has to be greater than. This time we'll do 500,000. Then comma to go to the next argument that you can see is in bold, logical test 2. And let's say that this cell right here, D6 for the years of service in that column, has to be greater than 5. Hit enter. Great, he gets a promotion. Let's select it. Bottom right hand corner, hover over it to get the black cross, double click really fast to do an autofill, and the only person who doesn't get promoted is Bob, because Bob didn't meet both. Remember, this is OR. He can meet one or the other. So he could have had more than 5 years. He didn't. He had 5 years. Or he could have had more than 500,000, but he didn't meet both. And let's take another example. Danny had more than 5 years, but didn't meet more than 500,000. And this one down below, well, he didn't have more than 5 years of service, but he had, just barely over 500,000. So he made the promotion list. The if function performs a logical test where if it's true, it returns one value, or false, another. For example, I want to give these people commissions if they meet a test. Well, if their total sales is more than 500,000. So let's go ahead and use the if function. Hit equals, type in if, there it is, checks whether a condition is met, and returns one value if true and another if false. With it highlighted, hit the tab key on the keyboard to pop open the function. We have our first argument, logical test. What's the test? Well, this cell, go ahead and select it, has to be greater than, type in the greater than symbol, let's say 500,000 or 500,000, and then to go to the next argument, hit comma on the keyboard, that turns into bold, and then if at any point while you're working through a function and you don't understand what it means, this is pretty simplistic and you want more detail, then in the middle of it, just come up here and click on FX, opens up the function arguments, and hopefully this will make sense, and give you a little bit more detail. For example, the logical test is E6 greater than 500,000. Well, it says it's false. Is that true? Yeah, it is false. If I go ahead and I flip that and say, okay, not greater than, but less than, then you can see it's true because, well, 481,000 is less than 500,000. But let me go ahead and flip that back around. And then if it's true, what do you want to do? Well, even though the first one's false, I'm going to copy and paste the formula, so I'll continue on because one of these guys is going to be true, I hope. And that's going to take this. Let me go ahead and click on its collapsible dialog box button so I can close it and click and drag the title bar to move it out of the way. And select this cell, type in asterisk because we want to multiply it by 0.05. Then hit enter to pop back open the window here. And there it is. You can see it there as well. And right now, if it was met, that would be his commission. But if it's false, then what do we do? Well, we can just go ahead and type in 0. And that's what it's going to equal. Click okie dokie, and he gets 0. Now let's go ahead and hover over the bottom right hand corner until we can see the black cross. Double click really fast and see what happens. And hey, these last three get commissions. And if it meets the criteria of more than 500,000, then it takes that total number, multiplies it by 0.05, and oh, that's a nice commission of 45 grand. Now, if you have additional tests that they need to meet, remember our previous training video on the AND function, or if it has to meet one or the other, there's the OR function. You want to watch the next training video on combined and nested functions. We'll be working with the IF function and the AND and OR. Now, you can change this up a bit if you don't want zeros displayed, maybe just nothing, or maybe something that says you get nothing. Go ahead and let's select the first cell so we can then copy and paste it afterwards so I can update all the others down below. Double click really fast. And then if it's false, you can see it's 0. But you can also do open quotes, close quotes, hit enter, and because there's nothing between it when I hit enter, you get nothing there. Or double click, and let's put something in between it. Oh, that's a bit harsh. Hit enter, and yikes. Let's go ahead and select the cell, double click really fast, and let's use Microsoft for good and not something as harsh. Let's just either leave it blank or say, let's try a bit harder next time. If you haven't watched the past couple of training videos on the if and or functions, you want to watch them because otherwise this one's not going to make sense, because I want to combine or nest one function within the other. And the example that I have here is I want to be able to set up promotions if they meet certain conditions. Now I don't want something that just says true or false, but if I did, I could use the AND or the OR functions. But with the if function, as you recall in the previous training video, I can be more descriptive and say, happy days, hey, you get a promotion, or you get bagel, you get 0. In any case, to go ahead and set this up, hit equals and type in if, and we're going to be taking the if function and nesting the AND function in the first example here. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the if function, and what's the logical test? Well, if I just use the if function, it gives me one test. But if I type in and after it, and with it highlighted, hit the tab key, then I can get multiple tests within that one test in the if function, because the order of operations says that you have to do what's inside of it first, and I can have 1,000 tests, okay, or quite a few. And then once it's done performing all the tests, then it'll come back out into the if function saying, okay, it meets the AND function results, or what are the results of the AND function, and see if it passed that test. So the logical test that I want to set up is it has to be, let me select cell E6, greater than, we'll do 500,000 again, and then comma. Now we're still inside the AND function, not the if, the AND. So we go to the next logical test, and we can say that for the years of service, which is cell D6, has to be greater than, let's say, 5. Then when I'm done, I want to close the parentheses, and then it goes to the outer function, which is the if, because we closed off the AND. So the logical test is two tests within the if function. Because we use the AND function, it's nested and snuggled right in there in the logical test. So we're able to get around that by using the AND function. Instead of one test, now we get two. Then we want to go ahead and hit comma to say, okay, what's next if it's true, if it meets both of these conditions. We'll go ahead and do open quotes and say happy days. And then comma to go to the last one to say if it's false, then let's do open quotes and say, or 0. Well, the bagel's the same shape as a 0, right? In any case, when we're done, we can go ahead and close the outer set of parentheses and hit enter. Oh, he gets bagel. Let's go ahead and select the cell, bottom right-hand corner, hover over it to get the black cross, the autofill handle, double-click really fast, and only one is able to have a happy day, and that's Homer. He's such a good employee. Now, in this next example, I want to do a nested if within an if within an if. Sound crazy? Okay. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and calculate the final grade for all their tests, the average between the two. To do that, we'll hit equals IF. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. What's the first logical test? Well, it's going to be the average, which has to be greater than, let's say, a 90. A 90 or above is an A. So if it meets that, hit comma, and then if it's true, open quotes A, close quotes, comma, and then what do we do if it's false? If it's false, then let's perform another test. Let's type in if. Ooh, this is getting kind of kooky. With it highlighted, hit the tab key. You really got to focus on this. So what's the logical test? Well, if this cell is greater than, let's do 80. Then comma. What happens if it's true? We give them a B, comma, and then if it's false, okay, we got to go to the next step. Another if. Because, we still have a few more letters, like to get a C, D, and F. With it highlighted, hit the tab key, and what's that logical test? Well, it's going to be the same cell again. It's got to be greater than this time. It's got to be 70, comma. Then it goes to the next argument. It's bold. If it's true, open quotes, we'll give them a C, close quotes, comma, and then if it's false, we'll do an if again. Whew, this could be quite time-consuming. And then with it highlighted, hit the tab key, and let's just say you get A, B, C. I mean, you can do D if you want. Let's just go right to F. And we're going to do the same cell. It's got to be greater than, let's do 60, comma, and then if it's true, we'll give them a D, and if it's false, anything that doesn't meet those conditions, we'll just go right into open quotes, F, close quotes, and then now we have to close this off correctly because we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 parentheses on the left, so we need a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 parentheses on the right. Hit enter and let's see what he gets. A B. Oh, that's not too bad. Let's select the cell, bottom right hand corner, get the black cross, double click really fast, and hey, the only one who got an A is Danny. Let's go ahead and mess this up a bit to see if it works. If somebody got a really low score, like let's say Homer got down to the 50s for this one, so it averages down to, well, 60 or greater than is going to be a D, but what if he got even less than that or failed to take it and got 0? Well, he's got his F. If you want a quick review, just go ahead and double click on it and see if it makes sense. You have the first if it meets this test, then they get an A. The false part says, let's do an if again. And then if it meets that part, they get a B. When false, then let's do the if again. And then do the if again until finally at the end, we're done with it. Just give them an F. The IFERROR function is used to eliminate Excel's default error expressions because when you look at the default expression for a divide by 0 error, whee, that's ugly. You can see that div is for divide, / is the symbol for divide, and then 0, you can't divide by 0, so Excel says this is my expression. That's not very viewer friendly to like the boss who's like, what does this mean? Translate. Well, we can go ahead and use the IFERROR function to say if you get this expression, instead of the devo expression, as I call it, you can say you just don't get a bonus. But before we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and double click to take a look at it to see why we're getting an expression as such. And you can see that we're using the AVERAGEIFs function. The plural s on the end means that I can set up more than one criteria or condition range. But I kept it simple, I just did one. So let's go ahead and click on the first argument. So you can see down below, it's in bold. The first argument says select the range you want to average. I selected this range. Now instead of just saying, okay, go ahead and average that range, let's go to the criteria range and say with the same range, it's got to meet a certain condition. And the condition that it has to meet is that it's got to be greater than 100,000. Not collectively, just cell by cell. So of the range, one of these cells has to be greater than 100,000, because if not, and they're all 100,000 or less, then you get 0. So when you have 0 and you try to get the average, you count up how many you have, which is 0, and divide it into it, you get a divide by 0 error. So let me hit the escape key on the keyboard, and if I come up here and I type in, let's do 100,001, 100, and hit enter, then we have 1. So we're dividing that 1 by 1. When you divide something by 1, well, you get the same thing. There's your average bonus size because it's referring to just 1. Let me go ahead and hit undo, double click really fast, and then click after the equals sign. So we're going to type in IFERROR before it. So let's do if e, and there it is. And it says return value if error, if expression is an error and the value of the expression itself otherwise. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. So now we have the AVERAGEIF nested within the IFERROR, well, almost, because down below in the syntax you can see that the first argument, the value, is everything there, but we got to click at the end of it, hit comma, so we can go to the last argument, which is the value if there's an error. Well, we know there's an error, so what do you want the value to be, or the expression? I'm going to do open quotes and say no go on bonus, close quotes. And then before I go ahead and hit enter, we have our first set of inner parentheses, so I need my outer set. There's 1. Now I have to add 2 to complement it, to close it. And then I can hit enter and hey, no go on bonus. For me, that's easier to understand than a divide by 0 error, because when the numbers are correct and you need something that tells you that they don't get a bonus, then there you go. But if they aren't correct, then it's good to have that error so you can go ahead and fix the numbers so that somebody, if we go back to here again, type in 100,001, then maybe 150,000. So 2 of the cells within the range are greater than 150,000. So what's the average between the two? 125. So it took the 2 and divided it by 2, as opposed to, if there was none, 0 and dividing it into, well, you can't divide by 0 because you'll get your devo expression, or with the IFERROR function, wherever you decide the IFERROR expression should be. If you want to calculate the monthly payment amount on a loan for a car or a house, use the PMT function known as the payment function. And I'm going to insert right here. I already got my spreadsheet set up, so this cell is going to be my monthly payment, which is where I'm going to insert the payment function, and that payment function is going to be based upon these 3 cells. You can see their labels. That's the interest rate, this is the number of payments, and that's the initial amount or the principal. So with the cell selected underneath monthly payment, the label hit equals, and PM, there it is, PMT, calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function, and then in bold, the first argument is the interest rate, and that's going to be that cell. But I also want to have it broken down monthly, 12 months in a year, so I want to do divide, or the /, which is the symbol for divide by, and then type in 12. And then comma to go to the next argument in the syntax, which is number of payments. It's going to be that cell, then comma, and then go to the next argument, which is PV, or principal value. Select it, and then when I'm done, hit enter. Now because I have nothing in the cells, it's going to give me nothing from the functions, so I need to come back here and type in an interest rate, and notice up here on the home tab in the number group that cell is going to be not a general number but a percentage. So you may want to go ahead and set that up so when you type in a number like 5 and hit the tab key, it converts it to a percentage, so that's 5%. Then the number of payments, let's do 60, tab, then the principal amount, 15,000, hit enter, and there's my monthly payment. Sweet. And of course you can play around with it. What if the interest rates go up? Inflation, 7%, and what if I want to get something like a Lamborghini or a Lexus? Let's just pick 50,000 in that range, hit enter. $1,000 a month almost. If you want to be able to show your formulas or functions because you don't want to go from one cell to the next and look up here in the formula bar and go, okay, I see that one, let me go to the next cell, okay, I think that's pretty much the same. Go ahead and use the display formula option, and not only does it display it, but it'll actually allow you to print it. So you can do that by coming up here, clicking on the Formulas tab, going to the Formula Auditing group, and it's that guy right there. You can see when I hover over it, in the pop-up it says Show Formulas, and the shortcut key is the Control Grave accent. I think in an earlier training video I said apostrophe. Well, I meant the grave accent or the key that has the tilde on it. In any case, use the shortcut keys or click on it. Pops it open. Let's scroll over to the right and hey, there you go. You don't get the results, but you can actually look at the functions now in full view without going from one cell to the next. And then you can compare and contrast between the two. And do they print? Of course they do. File, down to print. Although my spreadsheet hasn't been set up so it can print all in one page. We learned about that in an earlier training video, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and quickly go over to see, click on to zoom in, that they'll print here. So let's go ahead and go back, and if I don't want them to print, but just the results, then Control Grave accent or the tilde, and we're back to where we started. You can do it that way, or you can go ahead and double click within the cell, and just before the equal sign at the very beginning, go ahead and add an apostrophe, hit enter, and let me scroll over, and it will display the function. And if you want to go back to the formula, then go ahead and select the cell, and notice that in the cell itself, before the equal sign, you don't see the apostrophe, but when you look up in the formula bar, you can see it. Or if you double click in the cell, then you can see it within the cell. Go ahead and hit the backspace key to delete the apostrophe, hit enter, and we're back to where we started. As you recall in earlier training videos, we learned about the sum, count, and average functions. Well, here we're going to be using the same functions, but only if they meet certain conditions or criteria. Hence, you're going to have the SUMIF function, COUNTIF, and AVERAGEIF. And also there are plural versions if more than one condition has to be met, like SUMIFs. So what you're looking at here in this example is a mini database of essential oils. Let me scroll down. You can see it's not that big. Then we have their categories, if they're a blend, yes or no, the price, in stock, and milliliter. So the first example I want to go through is to add up the total oils in stock that are blends. So there's the first condition if it's a blend. So I can't just use a simple sum function because it's got to be based upon whether or not it's a blend. If yes, then add up what's in stock, 12, the next yes, which is 3, so there's 15 and so on. So come up here, let's type in equals SUMIF, and there you have the singular, then the plural. The singular says adds the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. Let me arrow down. And then the plural is by a given set of conditions or criteria, 2 or more. So let me go ahead and arrow back up to the singular SUMIF. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function. There's the first argument in bold. So it says what range with what criteria, that when it meets that criteria, do you want to go ahead and add up that other range? Well, the one we're looking at is blends. So go ahead and select the range of blends that contains yes or no. And then to get to the next argument, hit the comma on the keyboard. And then what's the criteria that it has to meet? Open quotes, it has to be yes, so type in yes, then close quotes, then comma to go to the last argument, which is what range do you want to add up if it meets that condition? Well, it's going to be those that are in stock, so click and drag and select that. So if it equals in this range yes, it comes over here in that same row, but to the in stock column and takes 12, then adds it to 3 and so on, so hit enter, and how many? 31. Let's see if it checks out. So which ones are blends? We have 12 right there, plus, let me control click 3, and you can see down below in the status bar, there's the running total, 15. Then the next one, yes, is 8, control click that, and then scroll down to yes, control click 8. Hey, there we go, total of 31 of the ones that I have selected, so it checks out. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Let's count up the total number of oils. Now this one has more than one condition. We have multiple. We have calming, non-blends, and a price less than $50. So, to count up the total number of oils that meet all those conditions, let's type in equals count if, and then there's a singular. Let's arrow down to the plural ifs. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. It says what is the criteria range, and then the criteria that that range has to meet. So the first one's going to be calming. It's in the category range, so click and drag to select it, and then hit comma to go to the next argument. Then open quotes and type in calming as the criteria, close quotes, then comma. Let's go to the next criteria range, which is going to be the non-blends, or the blend column, the ones that aren't a blend, so click and drag to select it, and then comma, open quotes, type in no within the quotes, then comma, and then finally the price has got to be less than $50. So here's the price range, again, up here in our syntax, the third criteria range. Click and drag to select the range, then comma, to go ahead and set the criteria for that range, which is going to be open quotes, less than 50, and then close quotes, hit enter, and we have 1. Okay, let's see if it checks out. First off is calming. How many do we have here? We got a total of 3. And then of the 3, which ones are not blends? Well, we have 2 that aren't. And then of those, which one is less than $50? Only this one, so it checks out. Finally, we've got the find average cost of oils, which are, we got more than one condition, which are antibacterial, non-blends, and 10 milliliters or less. So let's go ahead and type in equals average if, and we're going to use the plural because it has more than one condition, arrow down, select it, hit the tab key to pop it open. Now notice that the average ifs allows you to do 1, but it's typically used for 2 or more conditions, but you can use it for 1 condition. In any case, let's go ahead and find the range that we want to average, which is the cost. So that's going to be the price here. Click and drag to select it. And then to go to the next argument, hit comma on the keyboard. And what's the criteria range that we're looking at? Well, it's one that contains antibacterial, which is going to be this right here, this range. Click and drag to select it. And then comma, and then we want to set the criteria for that range, which is going to be open quotes, and type in antibacterial. Make sure it's spelled correctly, otherwise you're going to get the raspberries or not accurate results. And then comma to go to the second criteria range, which is going to be those that are not blends, so it's going to be this range. Click and drag to select it. Then comma to go to set the criteria, the next argument for criteria 2, open quotes, the ones that say no, and then go ahead and comma, phew, we got one more, and then those that are 10 milliliters or less. So the range for that is going to be the last, and I can't see the label, but it is the last. Click and drag to select it, and then comma, and then to set the criteria that it has to meet for the selected range is open quotes, and then less than, type in 10, close quotes, hit enter, 28. Let's see if it checks out. So of all those that are antibacterial, we've got 2 here, and then 1 down here, so 3. And then of those, the ones that are not blends, so we have 2 that are, so it's this one, which obviously, in order to be the only one that meets it, which it does, it has to have 10 milliliters or less, and it is, it's 5, so checks out. There's really not much to the convert function. It's really simplistic. It's going to be a very short video because basically all you're doing is typing in equals convert, and you can see it converts a number from one measurement system to another, just so you can be aware that Excel does actually have a function that does that. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open, and it says give it a number. What number? We'll type in 50, and then comma, and say okay, from what unit does that number, do you want to convert from that to something else? So you can do, well, we got the UK, the ton, the meter, the inch, the foot, the yard. How about a day? Double click on that and then hit comma to go to the last argument within the syntax, and it says, okay, we got 50 days. What do you want to convert it to? Hours, minutes, seconds? You can go ahead and arrow down to hours or double click on it. Or with it selected, hit the tab key to pop it open, hit enter, and wow, 1,200 hours within 50 days. Good to know. The 2 functions we'll be covering are the match and index. First off, the match function. Now the definition of that is that it's going to return a numerical representation of a value's place in a single row or column, also known as a vector, the column range that is, and it's often used to return an item's row number for use in another lookup function like the index function, which we're going to be covering in just a minute. So first off, what you're seeing here is my database, and I have my employee ID that I want to look up, but which employee ID? Let's keep it simple, like the second from the top, which is Bob Appelman, so it's going to be this number right here. So I'll come up here and I'll type in 987654321. Now I want to return the item's row number. Now for me, I'm looking at this going, okay, it's the second, but according to the database and how Excel is going to be looking at it by using the match function, the header row is considered the first row. Then it'll count down 1, 2, so a total of 3. Let's go ahead and use the match function here to return the row ID by typing in equals, MAT, there we go. Returns relative position of an item in an array that matches a specified value in a specified order. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open. And what's our lookup value? It's going to be in this cell, and then comma to go to the next argument in the syntax. And what's our lookup array? In other words, the range that we'll be looking at, the vector, the column range. And it's going to be this range right here, which is cell A5 all the way down to A73, which is going to be the same column. Because remember, the match only looks up in a row or a column, and we're going to be doing the column here. So let's type in A5 colon, which means through A73, which takes us all the way to the end of that column, and then comma, and then what match type? The exact match. We want to make sure that what we're looking up here, his employee ID for Bob Appleman, gets an exact match here. So we want to type in 0, hit enter, and it says that it's in row 3. So again, it's looking at the header row, saying that that's row 1, 2, and then 3. Now in conjunction with the index function, which returns value in a row and or column of a cell range. And so if I come up here and I say I want to get the employee whose row ID is number 3, which is the third row down, then go ahead and type in equals index, and there it is, returns a value or reference of the cell at that intersection of a particular row and column in a given range. So index highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open, and it says what table you're looking at. Well, it's this entire table here, but I called it my data. You can see, as you recall in an earlier training video, you can name your ranges with selecting it, typing it up here, the name of it. So it's data. You can see it selects everything here, including the header row or the labels for each column. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop it open, comma, and then what's the row number? Well, it's this one right here that the match brought up, which is going to be row, the third row down from the header, 1, 2, 3, that one right there. And then comma, and then it says the column number that you want to return the information from. So after it finds it, looking in this database and referencing the row number, which is 3, this one right here, in that row right here, which column do we want? We want the employee's name, so that's going to be, this is the first one, that's the second one, so we'll type in 2, hit enter, and hey, there we go. So you can see how they work in conjunction. They could be used separately, and your own database is the limit. If you need to look up for a specific row and to find the row number so you can reference it for other reasons, that's fine. But in conjunction with that, you can actually use it to pull up information anywhere along that row if you identify the column by using the index function, again in conjunction, after you have the match function identifying the row number. What you're looking at here is the totals that I have for each employee, the sales that they made from January through April. And I want to be able to look that up down below in this mini table to return the level that they're at in sales, like are they in the silver club, the gold, or the diamond. So the silver is more than 500 but less than 800, and then gold is more than 800 but less than 1,000, and anything 1,000 and over is going to be in the diamond. To do that, I'm going to be using the lookup function, and the definition of the lookup function is that it's going to look in one row or column range, the column range, also known as the vector range, for a value and return value from the same position in one row or column. So let me show you. Let's go ahead and type in equals, then look. There we go. Looks up a value either from a one row or one column range or from an array, provided for backward compatibility. That's the array. We're going to be using the vector. Let me show you. With it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function and you get two choices. We're going to be using the vector because the array is for backward compatibility with other spreadsheet programs. So to choose the top one, we'll just start typing. The first argument that we're looking at in bold is the lookup value. Either go ahead and type it in or select the cell in this case that we have the value in, which is going to be H7. Then hit comma on the keyboard to go to the next argument within the syntax, and that's the lookup vector. Where do you want to look this number up? It's going to be down below in this row. So click and drag to select the row, and then comma to go to the final argument in the syntax, and what's going to be the results after it looks up that number in that range. It's going to come from that range to get our level silver, gold, or diamond. Then hit enter, and hey, isn't that spiffy? then of course you probably want to go ahead and copy and paste it, but if I hover over the lower right hand corner to get the black cross and click and drag it or double click really fast, it's not going to work because, as you recall in earlier training videos, that the references are relative. So when you double click, it references that, but as I go down one row, then everything here is going to go down a row. So it's going to reference that as the lookup and the blank row down below as the return or the resultant vector, and that ain't going to work. So I have to tell it to stay and be absolute and not be relative and adjust as I copy and paste the formula down from one row to the next. So we've got, let's see, this is row 13 and 14. So if I come up here for the lookup row, there's 13. Let me just go ahead and place a $sign in front of it, which means absolutely stay in row 13. Don't move as I copy and paste the formula down. And also, because we're going from column I over to column A but still in the same row, we need to add it for row 13 for column K. And then also the resultant vector, the results therein, are going to be row 14, so I need to add a $sign from column I that it starts, and then the end before 14 in column K. Then hit enter, and then select the cell, lower right hand corner, get the black cross, double click really fast, and fabulous. So you can see when I double click on any one of them, it keeps it absolute. Make sure that the lookup vector and the result vector are always going to stay in the same row and not change as we go down. And those $signs are absolute references. Keep it that way, absolutely. Let me go ahead and hit the escape key, and to see if it works with the diamond, I can go ahead and increase his cells over here so it increases the total here, which should set the level higher if I get 1,000 or over to be in the diamond club. So if I just type in something like 500, hey, isn't that over 1,000? Yes, so he's in the diamond. Now, one final thought, but if it's not obvious, make sure that the numbers that you use when you use the lookup vector is in ascending order. If it's not sorted ascendingly as you see it here, and you put in something like, oh, let's do 900, type it in here, you're going to get issues. When it comes to doing cross-referencing with the database, if it's small enough, it's probably not that big of a deal. So if I want to look up the model number 200, look over here, there it is, there's the row, and then find the year, like 2004, pretty simple. But you can imagine if you had a huge database, that could be quite the big deal. So we have the vertical and horizontal lookup functions to help us. The vertical lookup takes the value that you want to look up and looks up in the leftmost column of the database, and the horizontal in the topmost row, or the row that you designate, typically the topmost row. So for this example, let's use the vertical lookup function that we want to return the part number for this model, and then we'll set the year as we go through the function. So go ahead, with it being next to the label because the result will be the part number, hit equals, and then VLOOKUP, there it is. You can see in the pop-up it says looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table, and then returns a value from the same row from a column you specify. By default, the table must be sorted in ascending order. So make sure that it's sorted numerically when it does the comparison and looking up 200 over here in the leftmost column, because if not, you're going to get issues. So ascending order, smallest to largest. Also, if you have text that you want to look up, make sure it's from the upper end of the alphabet A all the way down to the Z's. So with it highlighted, go ahead and hit the Tab key to pop it open. To begin, you've got the first argument. What value do you want to look up? You can type it in or go ahead and select the cell that contains the value, and then hit comma on the keyboard to go to the next argument in the syntax, which is the table array. The array means group of cells, and it's going to be this right here if you want to click and drag to select it, or type it in, A4 colon J15, so A4 through J15, then comma, and it says what column index number do you want to return. Now we're not talking about the labels that we assign to the columns here, but the index, as we talked about in the index training video, in this case the column number that Excel assigns within a table, wherever that selection may be. And within the table, the leftmost column is number 1. Even though that just has labels, it just sees it as the first column. So there's column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we want to do 2004, then we'll type in number 5, hit enter, and let's see if it checks out for model 200, row 2004, checks out. And then if you come down here, you want to update the model but keep the same year, then type in a new model number, hit enter, let's see, for 250 for the same year, checks out as well. Now you need to know that the vertical lookup function takes the value here and does a equal to or greater than, meaning that if I come up here and I type in 201, hit enter, it looks at the 200 row and it says, okay, it's equal to 200 or it's greater than but less than 250. I'll keep it in the 200 row. So in the 200 row in the fifth column brings up the same number. But that could present a problem because if you need to have an exact match when you're looking at part numbers, because you need to know whether or not you have it in stock and not get the wrong part number, then what you need to do is to come down here and change the vertical lookup by double clicking on it. And we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 arguments. We only did 3. The last argument by default, if you click at the end of it, well, just before the last parentheses, you can see the column index is the second to the last argument. Hit comma to go to the last one. By default, it's going to do an approximate match lookup, like the equal to or greater than. If you want an exact match where it has to equal exactly 201, that if it's not found within the database, you want a result that says not available, go ahead and double click on that. So it says false, not an approximate, but it has to be true. Hit enter, and it says not available or not applicable. So that way you can say, okay, we don't have the model 201. Look somewhere else, as it were. Now, like I said, you can also do text. So if you come over here and you type in, like, let's say blue, hit enter, and then come down here and say that you want to look up blue, hit enter. Hey, it found it. Now, what column? Remember, down below we said it's the fifth column, the year 2004. So blue, starting with the first column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that checks out. Now, as far as this goes, let me double click to open it back up to see our function. You don't have to have an exact lookup, so you can get rid of the false here because the default is going to be an approximate. Hit enter because when it comes to approximation with text, it's going to be exact. Blue is blue. I mean, there's nothing like, okay, less than blue is yellow, greater than blue is red. I'm kidding, there's no such thing. So if it sees blue, it'll pull in blue. And also keep in mind that when you have text in the leftmost column, make sure it's sorted descendingly, so the A's up at the top all the way down to the Z's. Now let's go ahead and hit undo a couple of times to get back to where we were. There we go. Something that didn't, when I double click on this, doesn't have the false where we get an exact match, so that's gone. Without it, by default, you get an approximate, so let's hit the escape key to get back out. And let's do something that I think might be more helpful. Instead of saying, okay, instead of looking at the year 2004, how about if we want to do 2005? That's the sixth column. I'd have to come in here and double click each time to update it and say, okay, delete that, type in 6 and hit enter. Unless, of course, you want to have another cell that will designate the column for you and say, okay, every time I type in a number here like 4, hit enter, it references that and it says, okay, go to column 4. You can do it that way, but what I'm thinking is that how about if we just type in the years? You get the idea. The point being is that you can go ahead and copy and paste the function down below, so when you type in a model number, it'll update it and return all the values for those different years for that same model. So to do that, let's go ahead and select this, hover over the bottom right hand corner until you get the black cross. Now if you watch my previous training videos on the autofill handle, when you double click really fast, it copies and pastes the function down below, but you're going to get issues because by default we're working with relative referencing, meaning that when I go down row by row, when I copy and paste, it's also going to take the function and what's referencing, wherever it's referencing, like the model number and the table, and bring it down row by row. So if I come down here and double click, what's going on here? It's no longer referencing the top row and the one below it because we went down 2 rows when we copied and pasted the function using the autofill handle, so hence it drops it down 2 rows down below as well. So that ain't going to work. Let's go ahead and hit the escape key and go back to our original cell containing the vertical lookup function, double click. And we need to tell it to stay in 2 places. First off, when we go down row by row, we don't want it to lose sight of the model and go down to the next empty cell, but stay there. So if I come over here to the reference, which is cell E17, remember, we're going down row by row, so I just need to say to stay in row 17. If we were going over column by column, I'd have to say, okay, stay in column E. But since it's just row by row because we're going down, then go ahead and put the absolute reference, the $ in front of row 17, so it always stays on that row. And then also, for the table array, we want it to stay in row 4, always the top row here, topmost row, so we'll add a $ to that. And then you got the colon through, all the way down to row 15, so we have to put a $ in front of number 15, and then hit enter. And then we can go ahead and select it, bottom right hand corner, autofill handle, the black cross, double click really fast, and hey, there we go. Now all we need to do now is to set these to the appropriate column that it's referencing in the database for the year. So the year is column what? That's the first one. That's the second one, so it's column 2. So I can double click and come over here at the end and say reference column 2. Hit enter. Then the next one will obviously be column 3, enter, and then the next one will be column 4, enter. So whatever part number I'm looking up, at least for these 3 right here that I'm focusing on right now, if I do 100, let's see if it checks out. So for 2000, I ought to get 82, 2001, 35, 2002, 20, or 205,315. If your database is small enough, it's not that difficult to do cross-referencing. Like if I want to look up the year for a part number, 2008, there's the column. And then for the cross-reference of the model number, 250, it's right there. Not too bad. But if you had a huge database, that could be quite cumbersome. So we're going to be using the horizontal lookup as opposed to the vertical lookup that we covered in the previous training video. The horizontal lookup will take the value that you want to look up and look up in the topmost row that you designate, which is going to be this row. Find it and say, okay, here's the column, and then in the function you designate the row and you'll get the cross-reference. So to get started, let's go ahead and insert it next to the label because that's going to be the resultant value of the horizontal lookup, the part number. So type in equals HL for HLOOKUP, and there it is. Looks for a value in the top row of a table or array of values or a group of cells and returns the value in the same column from a row you specify. So with it highlighted, hit the tab key to pop open the function and it says, okay, the first argument is the lookup value. Either type it in or select the cell, as in this case, that contains the value, then hit comma on the keyboard to go to the next argument, that's in bold, and it's the table array. Now you can go ahead and type in the range, select the range, or in this case, since I already named the range as data, I can go ahead and type in D. There it is, data. With it highlighted, hit the tab key, and you can see it automatically selects my range. That's pretty slick. We learned that in an earlier training video on named ranges or naming ranges. Then comma to go to the next argument, the third one, and it says, okay, what row index do you want to return? Now in the table here that's selected, the row that we want to specify, let's say is going to be row 1, this row to keep it simple. Now according to the index, when you have a table selected, this is row 2. Microsoft looks at the first row, even though it's just for labels, as row 1. So to get the model number 100, we have to go by its index, which is row 2. So type in 2, and then hit enter, and let's see if it checks out. 2008. Cool, it works. Now by default, it's doing an approximate match, the vertical lookup, saying let's do something that's equal to or greater than with what you're looking up. So for example, we got 2008. What if I go ahead and right-click on the column for 2007 and go down to delete it? So we've got 2006, skip 2007 because let's say we don't have part numbers for that year for the models there. So if I come down here and type in 2007, hit enter, we shouldn't have a part number, right? Well, not according to the default vertical lookup function because it's going to do a comparison of equal to or greater than. Is it greater than 2006? Yes, but it's less than 2007, so it goes back to the lower number here. And it says, let's look for this year for what we designated the model number 100, which is row 2. So to avoid errors, because you don't want to look up something if you don't have it, to be able to say, okay, let me give you this part number when you don't have that year at all, to go ahead and double click and edit the horizontal lookup function and go at the end or just before the last parentheses. So you can see by default, the bold there, we're in the second to last argument, that when you hit comma on the keyboard, you get the approximate match, which is the default. If you don't select it, it's still going to do an approximate, equal or greater than the number that you're looking up. Or if you need an exact match, go ahead and double click on that so it's false, meaning that we're not doing something approximate. It's got to be exact. Hit enter, and then it brings up not applicable or not available. So that way we don't hand out a part number for another year and give them something that they don't need. Now you can also do this for text. So if I come up here and I type in the word, let's say red, and we want to look up for red, then go ahead and type in red, hit enter, and it finds it. Remember, it's looking in the same row because we haven't updated our function yet. That's going to be row 2, which is the model number 100, and it brings it up, it checks out. Now remember, it's got to be in ascending order, so when you're doing horizontal lookup, it's got to be from smallest to largest, or if you're doing text, it's got to be alphabetically, from the upper end of the alphabet, the A's, all the way down to the Z's, because if not, you're going to get erroneous results. Now you don't have to have an exact match, so you can double click on this and get rid of the false there, and you can just leave it the default, which if you don't put anything there is going to be an approximate. And what's approximate of red to red? Well, there's nothing that's greater than red like blue or less than red, which is yellow. I'm just making that up because there's no such thing, so you can leave it as approximate and not do an exact when you're looking for text. Let's go ahead and hit undo a couple of times. In fact, many times, so we can get back to our deleted column 2007. And if you wanted to change the year for the same row, 2004, of course it updates it, so it's still referencing the same row, but if you want to reference a new row like a different model number, 150, remember that's the first row according to Excel's indexing. So with our table that we're referencing, there's row 1, row 2, there's row 3, so I could double click down below, type in 3 for the row index, hit enter, and that's for the year 2004. That checks out. But to me that way could be quite cumbersome. Another option that you may want to consider is if that's for the part number 150, let's just type in 150. This could be for 200 and that could be for 250, and you can just keep on going down. You get my drift. So what I have to do is go ahead and take the function here and copy it down to those below. But as you recall in earlier training videos, when you hover over the bottom right hand corner, you get the black cross and you click and drag it down to copy and paste it. The references for the functions are going to be relative unless you tell it to be absolute, constant, don't move. Because if I come down here and double click, since I copied and pasted it down one row, it's going to shift everything down one. Now the cool thing about this is that it didn't shift my data range down one because it's still referencing the same named range, data. That's not going to change. But if I didn't have the name for that range and I typed in cell A4 colon J15, then it would shift down, and instead of A4 it would now be A5 the next row. So that's the good news of using named ranges or giving a range your own name. So the only thing that I have to worry about when I copy and paste is the reference right here. This is E17, but since I went down one row, it went to E18, hit the escape key, went down 2 rows, this went to E19. We don't want it to do that, so let me hit the escape key, go back to the original HLOOKUP here in that cell, and because we're going down row by row, I just need to put a $sign, an absolute reference symbol, in front of 17, which is for this row. Don't move, just stay always in that row. When we're going down, copying and pasting that is, row by row. If we were going over column by column, we'd say stay in that column, but since we're not going over column by column, I don't have to put a $sign in front of the letter E to tell it to stay in the E column. So the $sign in front of the number 17 for row 17, hit enter, then go ahead and select the cell, lower right hand corner, black cross, double click really fast, and then after that I just need to go ahead and update the referencing for the rows. So 150, remember there's the first row, second, third, 150 is the third, 200 is the fourth, so double click and change it from 3 to 4, hit enter, then 250 would be consecutively number 5, and so let's see if it checks out. So when I type in 2004, there's the 2004 column. So for 150 is 11, 32, 70, it checks out. So if I go ahead and update this to 2005, isn't that great? I don't have to go down below and double click and update the row number if I'm looking for a part number in another row. I can just go ahead and type in all the models here and then type in 1 year, and it'll bring everything for each one of those rows, those model numbers. Of course, if your database is huge, then you may want to consider having another worksheet. So your database could be on worksheet 2, and then on worksheet 1, just have this here that you can type it in and reference all the data on worksheet 2. Because when you double click, right now it's looking up everything on this worksheet. To get the data on another worksheet, then with it selected here, all you have to do is go ahead and type in, if it's sheet 2, you can type in sheet exclamation point, if that's the name of your worksheet, sheet 2, or whatever the name of the worksheet is, your operator, which is the exclamation point sheet 2, and then go ahead and type in the cell range A5 through, or whatever it is. Or hit the escape key. What might be easier is with it selected, come up here and click on FX. It opens it up, and then you can go ahead and select the table array, which is referencing my named range data. Click on the collapsible dialog box button so it collapses, then you can select your other worksheet, and let's go ahead and delete that here, and then click and drag and select your range, hit enter to pop it back open. So it's referencing sheet 2 exclamation point and then the range. Click okie dokie. We're going to get the raspberries because I've got nothing there, so I'll hit undo. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.